Opposed? Ayes have it, unanimous. All right,
Mr. Mayor,
yes.
we will also make sure the public is aware when the ONG meets, so they wanna be there because two of us right here, me and Mr. Special is on the ONG, so we will definitely publicize, so you will have your opportunity to speak your piece.
Right, yeah. That would be the first opportunity, and you'd also have an opportunity at public hearing, if you have one, if it got through the ONG in the first place.
Okay, now, next step is old business. Westwood project update, city manager Mackey.
Thank you, Mr. Morrissey. I think, as is in the council packet, the informational meeting letter and update kind of lays it out. We had put the Westwood project out to bid, and had given about 30 days for the contractors on which to bid. We did not receive any bids back, and it's a substantial project, as you all know. It's about $5.5 million is our estimate. That being said, we spoke to a number of the contractors whom we would expect to bid on a project of this size. Many of them indicated that they had carryover work from the previous year, as well as with all the infrastructure funding passed down from the federal government to the state. A lot of the contractors that would potentially be bidding in our projects were already tied up with all those funds. So we discussed the project as a staff and how we move forward with it, as well as with some of those contractors who just had issues with it because we basically had a start and stop date of this year. So they had to be complete by, I believe it was mid-November, pave the whole project. Based on those discussions we had, we're going to put it back out to bid, but we're going to give some flexibility to the contractors in bidding that they can do a portion of it this year and then a portion of it next year. Whatever they do this year, having to be complete before the end of the season, and then start some of the things that they couldn't get to for next year. This was felt by some of the contractors that would give them the flexibility with their crews, because many of them are still experiencing labor shortages, as well as material lead times. Would give them some flexibility that this project could go into 24, but in any event, it would be done by the October 31st of 2024. So that's what we're doing. We did cancel the informational meeting that was set for the 30th. But we did send out this update to all the residents within that district, so they understood where we stood, or where we stand on the project right now. So.
Okay, so, the disappointing, but reality is reality. Now, in terms of the monies that we've set aside, that just stays in the bank, so to speak. We don't use it for anything else. It's sacrosanct.
Yeah, that is correct. So when we did the bonding on this project, it is specifically identified for this project for the roads, water, sewer, and storm sewer. So it cannot be used for anything else. So it will stay there until we start construction and finish it.
Good. And Councilman Sharp.
It's gonna be another rip-on nightmare, I can feel it. Anyway, will they be taxed this year, assessed this year, or that won't be going into effect till the project is done in 24, or will they see it on their winter bills this coming winter?
They will not. No, that will be pushed back.
Thank God, that'll save a little grace. But, yeah, I was concerned with that because it's a massive project, it really is. And we wanna do it right, and if we don't start it right this year, let's just get all the material here and get the contractors lined up, and do it next year and get it done in 1 year's time, like it should be. I mean, those roads up there are terrible. I took my wife up there the other night when we were up in Gary's area looking at all the nice dark houses. And that street was an adventure driving on. I mean, it is, I don't know how you do it. I certainly don't know how you guys, you can't even go slow. I wouldn't even go up there with my moped. It's that bad.
And
But-
Carey Street is one of the better ones.
Yeah. So, I apologize to you guys, right now, it sucks. You guys deserve that street fixed. And we will continue on it, trust me, I'm gonna keep barking loud about this, cause I've only got 2 years left, folks, and that's my last project I wanna see done on the city. And I will go after, I got the PA system fixed in here, and I've got other things, and that's my last one, that's my bucket list right there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other, yes, Councilman Deere.
By splitting the project up, what do you foresee as far as contractors coming forth with bids?
Well, it sounded like some of the larger contractors that we were hoping would have been originally, it will give them some flexibility, and we should be seeing some of them bid the project. The project itself, where it seems massive, if you have a full-time contractor here, we've been told it's 4 to 5 months worth of work. So, if you have all the crews working, that's the problem, is because of staffing shortages and commitments to other workloads. They didn't feel they had the staffing manpower, all of them, and we're talking 20-some contractors, that have looked at the plans and such. So, we feel good that hopefully we will get one of them to bid with these changes, or at least a few of them to bid, giving them some flexibility, because they could piece it, the Glendale area, maybe this year, in the Westwood area next year, or however that would work. My comments are not meant to steer or say like, that's how we're going to do it. I'm just saying that that's how we're looking at giving them flexibility, is by area.
But the city would still probably have a say in how what portion of the project would be completed in coordination with the BPU and that.
Yes, that would be coordinated with the city engineer and worked through to make sure that it was, appropriately started and finished.
Any other thoughts? If not, there's something we need to do. Thank you
Just
very
an
much for that report, that's very helpful. Next set of businesses is new business, and item A, I should say, is to set a public hearing for the application for commercial rehabilitation exemption application for 3980 West Carlton Road. And we have an agenda item summary here, I'll just read it. The clerk's office is in receipt of an application for commercial rehabilitation exemption certificate for property located on 3980 West Carlton Road in Hillsdale, Michigan, owned by 3980 Property LLC. The application is for tax abatement on the rehabilitation of the property. The project has an estimated cost of $805,000 to rehab the building to lease for commercial space. The Economic Development Corporation will meet on Tuesday, March 21st, 2023 to review the application and make a recommendation to council. Staff recommends council do all the following. 1, set the date and time for the public hearing mentioned above to April 3rd, 2023 at 7 p.m. 2, direct the clerk to notify the applicant, assessor, and representatives of the affected taxing units as required under the Act. 3, following the public hearing within 60 days, receipt by the clerk no later than April 25th, 2023, adopt a resolution either approving or disapproving the application. Reasons for disapproval must be set forth in writing in the resolution. 4th and finally, if approved, direct the clerk to forward the application to the State Tax Commission before October 31st, 2023. City Manager, do you have anything to add to that?
Nope, that was very clear. We just need council to set that public hearing and direct the staff to do those things.
Do I hear have a motion?
Question.
Question, okay, first.
What building is this?
What building is this?
The picture doesn't show.
Just to the west of Stillford, it's that next building.
Oh, okay.
From where they did their expansion, it's that empty one there.
We own that too? City limits went out to Stillwell's, I thought we stopped there.
Yeah, just north, I'm sorry, yeah.
Is that the old Jonesville Promise?
Yeah.
Is that that one?
I would propose that we accept this and move forward with it. I think, I drove by the building and they're gonna spend $805,000 on this building, which will be a large improvement over what is there, and it's been empty for years. So I think this would be something that very positive.
Okay, so moved by Councilman Wolfram, seconded by Councilman Soha. Do we need a vote or? No, no vote, all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. All right. Next, item B is to amend the capital improvement plan. We need a resolution for that, and that would be Mr. Beaker, I believe. And also, is Mr. Moore is the chair of the planning commission, so if he chooses to address us, he can do so as well.
You sure?
Other than I'll just say that
Yeah, I was gonna say that it's not quite current anymore after receiving the grant. But it isn't quite current. Just like the city is required to have a master plan, the city is also required to have a capital improvement plan. Capital improvement plan is the financial arm of the master plan, but however, unlike the master plan, which has to be updated every 5 years, the capital improvement plan has to be updated annually. And the way we do it is that the departments, each one of the departments that's included in here does most of their own forecasting, submits their numbers to me and planning commission, and we put them together. And then we ask that you approve it every year so that we stay on the state's good side.
There's a lot of information that's actually of great interest in that plan. All the statistics associated with our city. Useful, very useful document to just read. Council comments, questions? Yes, Councilman Soha.
Thank you. I was just curious, this technology improvements budget year 2026, well, 2025 for the BPU and then 2026 for, and it's on page 7 of the plan, which is page 63. It just goes from, in 2024 for the city, for technology improvements, we're at 28,000, and then nothing in 25, and then 209,000 in 26, and then 26,000 in 27. And I was just curious why, what are we doing in 25 and 26 to cause such a dramatic increase in the budget for those years?
Actually, I'm not exactly certain. That would be a question for IT. Those were the numbers that were submitted through IT and through DPS that does maintenance on the city hall and the infrastructure.
Sure, no, I appreciate it. I was just wondering what the costs were for, and would appreciate an answer if you could next time.
City manager.
I do see our Brandon here. Brandon, do you happen to know, Brandon was not, he was not the head of our IT department when these numbers
And
were
those have been
submitted.
numbers submitted by Scott. So.
Do you happen to know, Brandon?
Right off the top of my head, I do not.
So
I would
we'll-
have to go back through and look them up, so.
Thank you.
Anything else? So, we need to approve it, resolution. Do I hear a motion to approve this?
I would approve, but based on getting a nice answer for the.
Okay.
I'll second the nice answer.
Seconded by Councilman Sharp, all in favor? Opposed? Ayes have it unanimously. All right, now there's this additional item under new business, C, and that, I'll read the resolution. Whereas the city of Hillsdale supports the Michigan Department of Natural Resources
DNR, submission of an application titled Lewis Emery Park Improvements to the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund for the development of Lewis Emery Park. Whereas the location of the proposed project is within the jurisdiction of Hillsdale County, and whereas the proposed project, if completed, will be a benefit to the community, and whereas this resolution of support is acknowledged that the city of Hillsdale is not committing to any obligations, financial or otherwise. Now therefore, be it resolved that the city of Hillsdale hereby supports submission of a Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund application for Lewis Emery Park by the Michigan DNR. City Manager, do you have anything to add to that?
No, we did add this to the agenda because I believe the grant application needs to be submitted to this week or next, so that's why we added it to the agenda.
Do I have a motion or any comments?
I move.
Okay, Councilman. Okay, Councilman Wolfram moved and Councilman Veer seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Once again, unanimity. All right. The next step is miscellaneous reports. We have no proclamation. We have 3 appointments to consider. One is to the Airport Advisory Committee, Matt Shealy. And, yes, Mr. Palladino?
Is it, the airport advisory committee can have non-residents because it is a non-binding, non-authoritative body?
Yes. I believe is he a pilot, Ginger?
Pilot and a tenant.
Okay, so the charter said something about, officers have to be residents, but that this wouldn't technically make him an officer?
This board was created probably about 6 or 7 years ago. When I just first got here, I think Mayor Stockford was part of that. But it wasn't, it's not necessarily a formal board as per se the charter.
Advisory board.
Yes, it's an advisory board.
So it has no oversight over public funds, nothing like that?
No.
Also, most of your boards like that, people get appointed to, the members are not considered city officers. Officers would be people like the city manager, the city attorney, the clerk, treasurer. There's a list of them in the charter, is what's considered an officer.
Okay, so but generally then, for appointments, they have to come from the city under what provision?
It depends on what board it is. For example, members of the planning commission can be people, I do believe, under yours from outside the city, or at least in most municipalities, it can be under the Planning Enabling Act. So there are various boards where people don't have to be residents of the city to serve on the board.
So state law and the charter determines those on an individual basis?
Depending on whether it's state law or depending whether or not it's an ordinance or whether or not it's, in this case, something that's just established by the council to be advisory to the council to provide input on what's going on at the airport, basically.
Thank you.
Yeah, the council has his application here, just for the benefit of the public. I'll read one sentence of it. I am a pilot currently hangared and based at the airport, and he wants to help the airport grow and attract more aviation activity. So, do I have a motion?
Support.
Councilman Sharp moves, Councilman Soha seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
So moved, so done. All right, next appointment is Planning Commission, Roma Rogers.
So moved.
So moved, any second? Support by Councilman Soha, and, what's the, I'm losing my track, was this, do I have the approval of the council?
Or just voice vote.
Yeah, voice vote, is this we need a voice vote?
All in favor?
All in favor.
All in favor, yes.
Aye.
Okay, opposed. All right, you can see I don't usually do this. Okay, now, the last one is Library Board, Daniel LaRue. Yes, City Manager.
Yes, Councilman Morrissey. I see the school board president is here, Nicole Hoffman. Did you want to say anything? Mayor Pro Tem, you might want to ask Ms. Hoffman if she.
Ms. Hoffman, would you like to speak before us?
The school board unanimously voted Mr. LaRue, to the library board.
Okay,
We ran our due process like we always do, and I know no reason for him not to sit on that board.
thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, so the council now has a chance to discuss this. Councilman Sharp.
I think on a board, diversity is a good thing, and if you don't think so, look at me, folks. I've been elected 5 times. The 5th time, I finally came out and told people I'm a Democrat. And I'm surrounded by Republicans. But I'm also open-minded to things, and I've listened to all of you tonight. I've gotten many emails about this, many. I believe the school board should have a member on the library board. It's very important. Everybody spoke, and I've listened to you, and I will support Mr. LaRue to the year. I'm sorry you had to go through what you've had to go through. I apologize for it. I thought when we got our council packet Thursday night, this was gonna be a simple meeting. Mr. Hill called me Sunday and changed my mind on that one when he told me the information. I thought, well, we'll be here for a while, and we have been. There's so many things. There was a lady that got up and spoke, and she had a different accent. I would definitely address you and address you by your first name. I've had other council members in the past not return calls or emails to people, and the next thing you know, they're contacting me. Because I'm gonna get something done, because if you irritate me, I'm gonna find out what's going on, what needs to be fixed, and I'm gonna get you the answer. But the answer is to hear the school board should have a member on this committee, period.
Councilman Stewart.
Yeah, there's a lot of good points made, a lot of good support, which is understandable. But nobody in this room, not one person in this room ever had some of the reading material that's being suggested at our school library for our children. Suggested is too much. To think about it, to talk about it is too much. Actually, to put those type of books where our children can read them is outlandish. The most valuable thing we have in this community is our children. And it's our job, everybody's job, to protect the innocence of children. We're not talking about adults here, we're talking about children. So this, just even have the thought that this is acceptable is beyond pale. It's an abomination. I mean, the worst thing that you can do is teach a child to go the wrong way. Thank you.
Councilman Wolfer.
Yes, first of all, I'm not on Facebook. I don't read social media, nor have I ever, which saves a lot of time. But I did get a number of people from my board contacting me and asking that I vote no on this appointment. I also tend to agree with the Councilman Stuchel that a parent should want to ensure that they know what their child is reading, and some books are, I think, better served by being in the adult section of the library than in the children's section of the library. And I am aware of Patrick Flannery, and personally, given that we have to vote on these things, then I would prefer to have an alternative. It's not that I don't want somebody from the school board, but I would prefer Patrick Flannery if I could have the choice. So with that, I'm going to vote no.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councilman Soha?
So, I just counted, I have at least 30 emails with, some of those were voicemails that I wasn't able to respond to, and I will do my best to respond to everybody in time. But because of what happened in the fall with the library and the suggested materials, and then my emails were a little more no than yes, but close to 50-50, and tonight's support was overwhelming for Mr. LaRue. But before that, I took the time this afternoon because I received 2 phone calls back to back about 3:30 or 4 o'clock, and so I called him at his office because I knew where he worked, but he wasn't in, and I gave him my phone number and I said, please, this is pretty urgent, I would like to speak to the man. And so he graciously called me back within probably 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and we spoke for about 15-20 minutes. And we disagree on a couple of things, but he said a couple of things to me that I really appreciate. He said he would be open-minded, and he said he would consider, everybody's opinion. I don't know about the Facebook. I went onto his Facebook page, but we're not friends on Facebook yet, and so some things were blocked. So I scrolled for probably 5 minutes. I didn't see anything. Wasn't looking really hard. I was just trying to see what all the hubbub was about. We did approve the man for another position here, and speaking with him, I'm predisposed to believe that he would be willing to work with everybody. And so when I first heard about all this, I was thinking no, but I'm predisposed to vote in favor. Mr.
Well, per the current ordinance states, the library board shall consist of 5 directors appointed by the mayor with the approval of city council. But the mayor's not here. So, and if we are gonna trust our school board on the nomination, so it is perplexing to think about if the mayor did approach the school board on Patrick, and they denied that and put in their own. I don't know that. All I know is the mayor's not here, and I have to have trust in our school board members that have the best interests of the kids. So I'd have to support it.
To some extent, this is a question of the unity of the powers of the city. We're talking about appointing someone that the mayor was not selecting to spend the city's funds. The school board doesn't contribute to the city, and the school board has a budget that is massively superior to the city's. They have their own libraries. To give them this additional voice, especially when it will be a decisive vote on the board, and people said we don't have book challenges. We do have book challenges pending. These things are coming down the line. But I think that there's a sort of a public trust issue where we have someone who's elected to serve one body, but then they get an automatic seat to spend the city's library appropriated funds. The other thing is everyone's been sort of speaking vaguely about this, and this is one reason I wanted to just push this off and talk about the ordinance and the actual origination of these powers, where these came from. But I mean, the posts were pretty, they were shares, I think. The people sent them to me. I didn't know him, but to call someone evil you don't know, to share things that call me an extremist, a dangerous person for our city, it's hard to see how we're going to work together on a fair ground when that judgment has been made without ever having a face-to-face conversation. And in general, people have also said to me, I've received, overwhelming people saying no, the people that actually brought this issue to my attention. But the people that said, yes, we want him, one of their main points is that the council doesn't exercise any oversight over the mayor's appointments under basically any circumstances. To talk about vetting is, it's sort of a joke, right? Vetting, we never bring anyone in, we never question them. We're talking about, these have real power to administer the city's funds, but there's no oversight. And when I ran, I said, I would like a little bit more oversight over the actual people that the mayor is appointing. We're just getting in applications and saying, yeah, go for it, but I've served on boards and not even, ideological or philosophical problems, but just people that don't really seem interested in becoming competent in the skills that are needed to administer those boards fairly. And to some extent, these are very complicated laws and ordinances, and so you can't expect them to have a wide knowledge of issues, but there's no problem in exercising oversight and asking specifically, how would you approach this issue? And getting clear answers. Now, I had a very good conversation with Dan, but when I asked him directly, how would you approach these specific issues? He declined to offer an answer on most occasions. And my agenda has been pretty clear. We're spending way too much money on books. They're circulating way too quickly. $10,000 plus a year on books. They're circulating very quickly. Then we're selling them off for $1. And content is a big issue in some of them. How are they getting into the library to begin with? But we have our clerks making $12 an hour, maybe less, I think, in some starting cases. When we're spending this massive amount to circulate these books that have no lasting value. So my agenda has been very clear. I want a permanent collection in the library, or what I would call semi-permanent, where we're picking books to make sure that they are worthy of being read, not today because they were in the news, but 10 years from now and 100 years from now. Otherwise, we have the kids, they read 40 books, but were they good books? Were they books that are challenging them, that are raising their minds? These are the sorts of issues we have to consider. And we can't just have this view that we need to bring in as much as possible into the library to represent a diverse range of views. Otherwise, kids won't read. That's one of the main arguments. They won't read if they don't have their views represented. But that is the TikTok and the Instagram and the Twitter of our generation. We're attempting to compete with social media. We're attempting to compete with all of the fads of the modern world. This nation was not educated by views that represent them. This entire nation was educated on Shakespeare when they're off in the woods, cutting lumber. They're reading things that are very far removed from their circumstances, because that's what elevates the mind and educates people, is reading about things that are vastly different from your situation. When I hear that we need, representing someone whose father was beating them and, they have to deal with all this trauma, we don't want kids who have trauma to then be told you need to read these books and meditate on these things in order to understand your situation. No, you need to read great literature, things that will say, life doesn't have to be like this. We can move beyond these things. And that's not to say that any particular book or category should be excluded across the board, but it's to say that representation of a wide range of lifestyles is not a literary goal. A literary goal is textual excellence. It's poetry. It's things that actually elevate the mind. And it's pretty astonishing that the public school teachers who are most in favor of these ideas are the ones laughing at them, because they're not concerned with great literature anymore. They aren't teaching the best books primarily. They're concerned with getting as many books in as possible and getting kids to read under any circumstances. I've said this, many times in public. It's been recorded. So when I say that this is political, not personal, that is what I mean. These are the issues we have to consider as a council. I have nothing against Dan. We had a good conversation. He seems like a good man. I need to know, does the city have control over this library board? Does the mayor have control over this library board? And I think the answer would have to be no. And when people come to the city and they ask, how can I address these issues? And the mayor can say, well, I'm technically in charge of that, but I had to make an appointment that I didn't want, so there's really no way to correct this until the term is up 5 years from now. We need unity in the executive, unity of appointments that actually concentrate power so that we know that we can go to a single person or a group of people to bring our complaints and to seek changes in policy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Wolf, I guess, is next.
Yes, I just wanted to make it clear that, I got a chance to talked to Dan, and this really has to do with policy. This doesn't have to do with personality or, you know, anybody's character or whatever. So this is just a policy issue for me, and I am of a different policy side than Dan happens to be, but I think he's a wonderful person, and I thank him for all the activities that he's done, and he's certainly had a vast number of people come up and talk about what a great person he is, and so I don't want to have any implication that it has anything to do with his character or how well he would perform. It's just clearly just a policy issue.
Councilman Soha?
So, you said nobody's speaking plainly. So there were books that were offensive to at least half of our community that were proposed last year, all right? And I heard from the podium multiple times, you know, respect diverse views, respect diverse views. Well, it appears to me that the respect the diverse views is as long as you're respecting views that promote attitudes and things that are contrary to nature. And they are contrary to nature. Two moms is contrary to nature. Two dads is contrary to nature. It just is. You can't question that. Whether somebody feels like they should marry a woman and they're a woman, or feels like they should marry a man and they're a man, that's a feeling. But it's contrary to nature. And there's a number of people in this community that are offended by that, including me. It's extremely offensive that it should be considered normal and righteous behavior that two men can live together and sodomize. It's extremely offensive to me that two women can live together and think that it's acceptable behavior. I don't approve of it. Now, I'll befriend him. I have friends who are homosexuals. I have family members who are homosexual. I get it. It's a big part of our culture and our community. But it doesn't mean we have to agree with it, and it doesn't mean we have to approve it at the council level. And these things that have infested our major cities, they haven't made them better. They haven't. Walmart just pulled out of Portland, Oregon because it's a cesspool of depravity and crime. They're closing their last store at the end of this month. Why? Because Portland doesn't know how to maintain integrity and control at the political level. Now, I called Mr. LaRue today because I wanted to hear him and I wanted to talk to him. And we have disagreements of opinion on issues, but I believe him to have integrity just based on my short conversation with him, and that he would try to do the right thing. My hope, if he does indeed get approved today, would be that books that promote this type of behavior, especially if they're drawn as cartoons and targeting the most innocent among us, wouldn't be prominently displayed in the children's section. That's offensive. That's not necessary. That's political. The whole LGBTQ blah 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 movement is a political movement now, and they're working on maintaining an increased number of power in our country. And if you don't see that, then I would just encourage you to look at what they've accomplished over the last 30 years since the 80s, when it became popular. This library board, I would charge you, and I know are all the members here today? I would charge you just to consider, you know, the books that you are choosing. I would charge you to consider Councilman Palladino's suggestion that the great literature, the great books, be there. I could get you a list. I have a list of 100 great books. I don't remember who published it. I'd have to do a little research. But let's have a core of 100 great books. You know, Moby Dick. Some of these things that are timeless, right? And let our children read that, not enforce this behavior that's detrimental to a person's identity, and trying to form and fashion somebody from 6 years old. That's the parent's job, right? So if it's in the adult section and the parents want to do that, although I completely would disagree with that choice, it's there. But I would suggest, as Councilman Palladino did, that we don't just change our book selection for light and arbitrary causes. And that's what I feel like was being done, and trying to get on the bandwagon with what's happening in the big major cities. No, Hillsdale is separate. We're different. That's why people want to come here. That's why we have a Southerner that was here speaking today. She loves the community, right? And we all love the community. I have no doubt for that. But we gotta make good decisions about, you know, the materials available in the library that are prominently displayed. Because when I went to the library with my children when they were younger, I would let them go into the children's section unattended because I trusted the library and the material that was there. Today, I wouldn't do that.
It's against policy.
Today, I wouldn't do that. Today, I wouldn't do that. So, I was in the library in a different part, and I would let them go and read. But today, I wouldn't do that. I would be with them. So, I am inclined to vote in favor of Mr. LaRue tonight, as I said before, with the hope and expectation that he will greatly consider the impact that these materials have on our youth, because those are the ones, this pornographic stuff that's being targeted towards our children, those are the things that is offensive and should be held to account.
Councilman Sharp and then Councilman Stewart.
He said control over the board was one of the things he wanted, and the council didn't step in. Well, when he was not on council and when this went down, I wanted to go down to the library board and find out what the hell was going on with the way the rhetoric was going down. That was concerning to me when it happened, what was going on. We lost a librarian director that quit. She left. On top of that, we worry about what we see, the children see in the library. What about at home? Who's monitoring, who's filtering the internet? I know fifth graders can get on the computer, can show me more stuff than I've ever can do on the computer. I'm not computer literate. I learn as I go. But there's kids there. Who is monitoring that? The library we can control, but who is controlling them at home? Parents are. And once again, parents should control what's going on in the library too. You should always know what's going on with your kids. Line of communication. If you don't have a line of communication, you're failing. And when you don't have that line, you've failed. And here we've had a line of communication with the public, and we've listened to you, and we understand. You will be watched like a hawk if you are appointed. You know that. This is a diverse group, the 5 board members on there. If we don't appoint you, then if Patrick Flannery gets on there, we have 3 members that are connected to Hillsdale College. Keep that in mind. It's coming down, folks. It's coming down. When my term is up, somebody's gonna sit here else. I don't know who it's gonna be, but I got my feelings. But I also respect what you've said. I've listened to you and I respect what you've gotta say. You're putting yourself out there. I warned you, your first couple council meetings, he was very quiet. Welcome to council.
Just, I'll make this real short. I agree with Mr. Solhoff when we talk about something with open-mindedness. It's necessary when we talk about the planning commission, the airport committee, all these things. When it comes down to children, you cannot be open-minded in some of these things. There is a hard line, a hard no. Anybody who even considers it and thinks it may be a good idea and willing to discuss it is too far over the line. Not for our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Hearing none, I should ask for a motion to approve the nomination.
So moved.
Support. Okay, Councilman Sharp has approved, Councilman Beer has seconded. And now, since there's disagreement, it wouldn't make any sense to have a voice vote, we should have a roll call vote.
Councilmember Beer.
Yes.
Wolfram.
No.
Morrissey.
No.
Palladino.
No.
Sharp.
Yes.
Soha.
Yes.
Stucho.
No.
It did not pass. 3
All right.
yes.
Now, we have, the next step is general public comment. 3 minutes, same rules.
and I'm Karen Hill from the library. I'm very disappointed that City Council voted against Dan LaRue. I appreciate all of your time and input. Historically, Hillsdale Community Schools has appointed one of their board members to be a representative on the Hillsdale Community Library Board. Jim Bowen had filled that position until December when his term was up on school board and chose not to seek re-election to school board. Hillsdale Community School Board has made their committee assignments in January, and Dan LaRue was appointed to that board to serve on the library board in a unanimous decision. Dan's appointment was left off City Council for 2 consecutive meetings, even though he was questioned why it wasn't on the agenda. Again, stalling techniques or political moves. I don't know, that's not my decision to judge, I'm just bringing that up. Our library board has been short a member for the 2 months despite an appointment and a willing volunteer. Previous school board appointees have not been questioned or opposed, but clearly there has been a backlash and a carefully orchestrated smear campaign against Dan LaRue. Past school board representatives have included people like Leanne Rumler, Jean Nolan, Bob Batt, Jim Bowen. We have never had this kind of controversy. I too have been portrayed in an unfair light. In reality, I have been following our local library bylaws as well as Michigan Library Trustee manual that I took an oath at City Hall to obtain. Page 39 states, in U.S. law, the freedom to read any information and the disdain for censorship of any kind means that the law favors freedom of speech and the right to read anything. Contrary to the myths that have been spread in our community, our library does not contain obscene materials. While not everyone may agree with some of the book choices, you have the right not to read them. Again, our trustee manual states it also supports the right of all members of the community to have access to a wide, objective range of materials, including items that some people may find objectionable. A library's collection should reflect the culture and diversity of the entire community. We are a community library, not a private library. As a board member, I've been trying to educate myself, not only through reading the policies, but I've attended local county-wide library association meetings. I've joined the Woodlands Cooperative that we're a member of and serve on a board there, and I've tried to understand all the policies. One explanation from one librarian that has long served explained it best to me in a way that I could understand. A community library has a responsibility to all of its taxpayers. We represent the breadth of our community. Breadth is one dimension, depth is the other. It is also our responsibility to look at the genres of what our community wants, what's checked out most frequently, what materials are wanted, what goes out in circulation most. That's what we do when we buy the depth. Again, we listen to people when they come forward and make book suggestions, and we buy those books. We have a responsibility to represent everyone. It's not always a comfortable decision, but that is what we are charged with. We welcome book selections. We're not a private library. Again, we're a community library, and there should be a unity in community. And this has become very divisive. I'd like to end with a quote from a book that I have been reading because of book challenges. And the quote was, "The book wasn't dividing anything, it was just a book. It was my mom who was doing the dividing." Again, you can speak up. Everyone's willing to have their opinion, and we'll listen to those. We are trying to be careful with book selections. We have had a change in directors, we have had some changes in philosophy, but the feeling out there in that community has become very divisive, and people boycotting our library, which is sad. It's a big part of our community. Our library is used not just for reading books, all sorts of groups meet there.
Thank you.
CASA people meet there.
Thank you.
Again, I'm sorry if I just.
You have 3 minutes.
I just want to apologize if I've offended anyone, but I am just doing what I was charged to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, to be honest, I didn't prepare anything for this situation, so needless to say, I'm disappointed, but I do want to thank you guys for your time and consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Any other comments?
Well, as you could tell from my previous discussion, I'm very disappointed. I'm very disappointed on a couple of you fellows. I'd like to have you go to the children's library section and say what's wrong with it. I doubt if you have. I think there's a lot of misinformation here. It's ridiculous. There is a procedure in place, like somebody else said, to challenge a book. But you do have to read the book, you do have to fill out the form, and you do have to suggest what's wrong with it. There are mistakes made. They're not infallible at the library. There might be a book in the wrong section. We all make mistakes, but you can't throw a broad brush at the whole thing and say the children's library section is full of all kinds of trash. It's ridiculous. I can't believe you guys would listen to that. And for you to say, you know, you want to fill the library with all these historical books and the classics, the taxpayers fund part of that. So they're your customer. You need to order the books that the customers will read. Maybe you don't like to read them, but you stop ordering the books that the customers want to read, they're going to quit going through the door. And we're going to lose our funding. So you don't have to agree with it. It's like going to the grocery store. You don't drink alcohol, don't go down the alcohol aisle. You don't quit going to the market house. You know, it's very disappointing that we spent all this time and effort. And, you know, the reason there aren't more positive people here is because most of the people think it's a board appointment. It's not, you know, just go through. The mayor, it's on the agenda, thank God it's gonna happen. And the negatives come out of the woodwork. The positives are home thinking it's gonna happen, it's gonna be no problem. So, you know, and we spent all this time tonight, instead of trying to figure out where you're gonna get $750,000 to clean up after the storm. I think we have a lot bigger fish to fry than taking a board appointment and making a big political deal out of the children's section at the library. It's ridiculous. It's embarrassing. I've been proud of the city for a long time, but this is ridiculous.
Thank you. Any other comments?
It seems to me that fear has been the big motivation here. I would challenge anybody on this council to provide me an example of where fear ended up with something good. You people are afraid of what you don't know. I just want to say one little thing, one little quote, and then I'll quit. Fear leads to violence. It's a double-headed hydra that's plagued this society. Whenever somebody doesn't understand someone else, they automatically fear them. What better way to bring peace to our society than understanding our fellow men? And that means LGBTQ. They're humans. You're turning them into a subclass. What the heck is wrong with you? This is America. There's one quote I wanted to read. I thought it was very important. Banning books gives us silence when we need speech. It closes our ears when we need to listen. It makes us blind when we need sight. And what I see tonight is blindness. Thank you.
Any other comments?
I just would like to say that I'm very disappointed in the decision tonight. I do want to commend you for seeing past some of the objectivity of this, and I feel making the right decision for this city and the city library, and I appreciate you pulling back some curtains and making people say, you know, we can talk to people and work things through, and I can trust people to make good decisions. what really frustrates me is I read your blog, and I'm going to be honest, I would censor my children from reading some of the hate on your blog. It is. It's pretty risky. It's pretty not nice. And I have children who are in college age. My son is a Michigan State student who just went through that shooting, and he's a journalism student. My daughter is a psychology student at Eastern University, and I raised them on that library, and guess what? I didn't censor them from books. I let them read what they wanted to read, and guess what? They're not gay. Because books don't make people gay. And that's what you guys are afraid of, that there's going to be more gay people in Hillsdale County. And that's disgusting. I'm really disappointed. As a teacher, I'm terrified that this small step at some point will make it into our classrooms. And then we were going to be told, like in Tennessee and like in Florida, that we can't provide kids with books. It starts with silencing people who want to do good things. And that's what you guys did tonight. And that's disgusting.
Thank you.
I'm Reverend Kathy Shively. My son-in-law's second cousin is Adam Stockford. My son and his husband were the first couple married as a homosexual couple here in Hillsdale. They have faced nothing but what you guys are promoting, which is hate, divisiveness, and a holier-than-thou attitude. That decision was made by the Supreme Court in 2015. You cannot reverse that decision. Yes, you can sit here all pious and say, I don't like that, but you cannot judge morality. You cannot legislate morality. You are not the moral police. For you to sit back on your butts and say, well, I don't like it. I may not approve of my son's lifestyle, but I approve of the fact that he is loved and that he has somebody who loves him and treats him with dignity and respect, which is more than I can say for what he has been and they have been through. Tom and Jean have had eggs thrown at them. They have had tires slashed. They have been called every name in the book. And when we have called the police, we've been told to just sit back and let it go. What you are promoting is hatred. What you are promoting is an ideal version of 1950s. Folks, the world has changed. Changed enough that you either accept what the Supreme Court decided in 2015, or you sit here and you become like ancient relics. Yes, I read the classics. I have a bachelor's and 3 master's degrees. And yes, I read everything. I was a licensed teacher. I was taught special ed for 7 years. I'm a nurse in 4 states. I'm an ordained Methodist pastor. And I choose to stand and defend my son. And I got put through a heresy trial. Nobody knows what these boys have been through and what they face. And the hatred they face from people here in Hillsdale is beyond anything I have ever seen. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other
I feel like we're living in Hitler Day, Germany. Hitler didn't like the Jews, so he marginalized them. He burned their books. He killed them. Are we going to start killing gay and lesbian people here down in Hillsdale? I mean, nobody is forcing your kids to pick up the book in the library, and it's against library policy to let kids, young age, go to the children's section unobserved. That was discussed here tonight. I mean, I am just blown away. We're supposed to be Hillsdale College, constitutional. We have rights. This is just unfreaking believable. It's a public library. It's not school. Nobody is forcing kids to read these books. They go in, pick a book out with their parents. My mom didn't let me read The Exorcist when I was in high school. She's like, no, you're not going to read that. That's what a good parent does. They look about what you're going to read and tell you yes or no. So for for you guys to sit there and deny this wonderful man a chance to serve on our community is just astounding.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Hi, my name is Nicole Hoffman, and I feel like we're kind of overlooking one major component here. Dan has been nominated to sit on a board. A board does not function with one person making these decisions of their own idea. It's a board. They work together and they vote on things just like you all have voted here tonight. So I don't understand why everyone is thinking that Dan is going to be in charge of every single decision made by this board. It is something that's going to be voted on, number one, and number two, a public entity should have board members with different ideas. That's just how it should be. That is the right way to work a public entity. So to not vote Dan on because he may have different ideas is ridiculous, and I'm embarrassed. Thank you.
Any other comments?
I just wanted to express my appreciation for the goodwill shown by each of the people who made a good effort tonight, and I encourage people to continue to work toward the good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I spent my life handing children books. It was my job. And yes, we read Chaucer and Shakespeare, and then we read about a lot of thievery in the church. We read about murder in Shakespeare. There's nothing wonderfully perfect about those storylines, sir. I want to thank the 3 people who voted for Dan tonight. You made a wise choice. The rest of you are going to live with your poor choice.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Thank you, everybody. Sorry to continue to keep you up this evening. I wanted to address a couple of things, and forgive me, I will try to keep it brief. One has been that some have suggested that it's absurd that we are staying up to all hours having a knockdown, drag-out fight about this. I don't think it's absurd. I think this is the most important thing that this council could possibly be discussing. I believe the question of what kind of materials should be written, should be published, should be put on public shelves within reach of children, is a vital social and philosophical question that deserves the amount of energy and deserves, frankly, the amount of anger that everybody is putting into this, because it is a spiritual question at the root of our society. And I do not believe that a laissez-faire attitude towards what does and does not belong in the public library is the correct one from the point of view of the library profession, of which I am part, from the point of view of an educator, or from the point of view of a city councilman. I believe it is vital that we exercise philosophical, ethical, and moral discretion about how public funds are spent and about what kind of things are put in the public library. And I believe it does matter what a person believes about those things, and that it is right to make decisions based on people's beliefs. I do not believe that merely having a diversity of viewpoints is itself an essential and necessary good. I believe that as elected representatives who put you in your seats because we believe in what you believe, you will in turn support what we believe and support people that believe as you do and as we do. I believe that is your moral and ethical duty, and I believe you have discharged it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none, I'll close the public comment section and go to the city manager's
grass on my porch tonight.
Council comment? Yes, Mr. Sopa.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So, as I said earlier, the diversity in thought idea in our culture leans to the left as being acceptable. It's true. And then we get mad, we get vilified, yelled at, because we challenge that from council. We got yelled at tonight. I don't appreciate that. I get called names, that lady said, my blog's full of hate. I'd like to know where. I don't hate anyone. I don't think any of us up here hate anyone. But if you don't recognize what, I don't remember, that gentleman said earlier about the spiritual battle, that is raging. It's raging all around us. Your son, I don't hate him. I'm not, Penny, I'm really offended by what you said. You know that's not true. Why you would say that is beyond compare. It's not your turn. It's not. It's my turn.
Have it. No comment from the public, please. We did not interrupt you.
And I just want you to know, we're trying the best here. Dan, I voted for you because we had a conversation, and I was hopeful that you would make good decisions being on the board, although I appreciate the gentleman who voted against you, because I understand their concerns. But at the same time, we hear the man sitting next to you said about LGBTQ, and the minister, she said about LGBTQ that I'm marginalizing them. I'm not. I didn't say they weren't people. I didn't say I hated them. I didn't say they deserve that. I just said that the agenda that they're proposing is dangerous. Because it is. Right? It is unnatural behavior. It's a chosen behavior. It is.
It is not.
Sir?
I'll
I'll finish with that. I just want to say, if you want to confront me on my blog, you can comment on it and point out. I would appreciate pointing out where I'm hateful in the language specifically, because I'm not. I love people. I genuinely love people. And if you talk to me like I talked to Mr. LaRue today, I think you might learn that.
Thank you. Any other comments, Mr. Councilor Short?
I apologize to you for what you went through. You didn't deserve this, and I do apologize to you. I'm embarrassed. And I will promise you, the next one they bring to us, I will fight tooth and nail. Because I am concerned about the powers play and the way it's shifted.
Yep.
I can only do so much, I'm only one vote here, but I will be loud and I will be vocal. Thank you.
Councilman Wolford.
I just want to point out that I am representing Ward 3, and as I said before, a number of my constituents, a vast number of my constituents asked me to vote no on this, and so I have nothing against Mr. LaRue. We had a nice conversation, and I think I've told some of the other people that had called me that are friends of mine that, I was probably going to follow what my constituents wanted. So, with that, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board, the council? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved by Councilman Beers, and second?
Support.
Okay, so
Councilman Soha, second by